This is where I am at the beginning of the third video. You could see up top I added ears as well as the tip of the nose, and the reason I added the tip was because the way those two pieces of wood ended was kind of at a very small triangle at the tip, and carving into it, it just would have probably broken and fallen off. So I just cut my losses and cut an L and added a big chunk that I could go into and carve. So kind of filled in a lot of those bigger gaps on the sides and the back. I did that today. You can see on the back here I started kind of practicing with the texture for the fur. This was done with a chainsaw, but I think I might actually buy a die grinder with some bits to do parts of the fur, just because wielding the chainsaw up top and on parts of the back is, you just can't get the right angle, so the die grinder will just be safer and probably faster. And there it is from the side. You could see on the arm, especially in the belly and the bottom of the legs, I really started smoothing everything out. And that's kind of going to be what I do for the body parts that don't need detail work. I'm going to smooth it out with a grinder, and then it will be ready for the fur to be carved into. So I went to go put this torture device in my angle grinder, and the nut that comes with the grinder is too wide. It hits this flange and you can't tighten it on there. So I happen to have a 5/8 inch nut laying around. I tightened it super tight in there with a wrench. I did a couple test passes on the bear. You can see right there is where those test pieces are. So I think that this tool is actually going to be a great resource. It cuts through that wood on the bear perfectly, and it can give me a concave surface, which is harder to get with the chainsaw, especially since one of that's have to be standing on a ladder for the parts of the head. It's just easier to wield something like this than a chainsaw. It's going to work best I've been putting off attaching the arm that's going to be waving on this bear, but I've gotten far enough along with the proportioning this out that if I don't attach it now, it's just going to throw all the other proportions off. So originally this was kind of the posture I was going for, with the arm maybe a little more outstretched, but since this would be on the left hand side, it would hang over my sidewalk. So I found this photo, which is actually a better representation of how I want that arm, if only the palm was flatter, so it looks more like a wave. That's pretty much what I'm going for. From the original proportions, you could see the arm extends for 1 2-foot section, about a half of another. So I'm going to rough out from shoulder to the tip. It's about a 3-foot arm. Could be give or take a little less than that. And you could see from this one, the shoulder pretty much extends from the front to the back of the body, and that's pretty much the entire width of the arm, covers the whole body, and then tapers to the paw. So I'm going to be kind of sticking with that. This is about the size it's going to stay, and I just kind of drew a big rough circle based on the fact that in this photo, the tip of the shoulder to just below where like your pecs would be is how wide that is. And then I kind of measured it off of this top one here to about here, which makes it about a foot. This is a little over a foot. I kind of sprayed it all in with orange. I'm going to take a saw and flatten this so I could attach something there. Unlike this bear that's laminated, I'm not having this solid wood. I'm basically going to have an inner armature, some sort of disc attached to a flat surface with a stick coming out, and I could attach circularly slabs of wood. And that is just because if it is solid wood like this, it's going to be so ridiculously heavy. Over time, it's just going to sag. And then I'm probably going to try and line it up with the roof line so that I could put a metal tie underneath the shingles just to kind of reinforce that arm. So I've been kind of hemming and hawing about this arm for a good half an hour, because if I do the armature, the slats will be vertically like this, and I was a little nervous about them breaking up the continuity of the piece, because technically to keep with this fashion it would be stacked like slats out. So I think I'm going to start mocking up the verticals, and I think it will look fine, and I'll kind of go from there if I don't like it. So there's the armature for my arm. I left it pretty simple. It's attached with two 6-inch lag bolts into this, and there's a dowel going into each part. And I just had some MDF. I cut a rough circle about 2 inches shorter than my outline so that when I lay that lumber there, it will come right up to my outline. And now I could take some wood and just start slatting this out. And I'm probably going to bring it all to about here, and then I'll probably carve and make the hand separately from a solid block of wood, and then I could just drill a hole in the hand and slide it right on the end. Working on this bear has attracted a ton of attention, and my neighbor, you can see their house, well, not with the glare, on the corner over there. She rents out a couple rooms, and she rents out a room to a guy who used to be a professional tree climber. He doesn't do it anymore, and he had told me the other day he had this saw, and he said I'm more than welcome to use it for the bear. It was one of those weird gray areas where I don't know if he wants it back, but that doesn't really matter. It was awesome for him to offer, and I took him up on it. He said it just needs to be cleaned and a little TLC put into it. It came without a bar or a chain, and he's a tree guy, so the spark plug was taken out of it, and both of the tanks are empty, which is good because I won't have to worry about any old gas in the fuel lines or anything like that. So I'm basically just going to take it all apart, clean it up, nothing super major. I'm basically just going to take off the covers I could reach, blow out all the old dust. The spark plug I found for it is RCJ6Y. It's supposed to be an RCJ7Y. I'm just going to use this to test to make sure it works before I spend the money on a bar and a chain. At the same time, if it does work, I'll just replace the spark plug, but I could use this to kind of see if it will start. And this saw is a professional tree climbing saw. It's a 33/8 XPT. I don't believe they make them anymore. It's an older saw. They probably make a newer model of it. And from what I saw on Husky's website, this can take anywhere from a 10-inch to a 16-inch bar, which is going to be super convenient. 10-inch bars are kind of hard to find, but I think a 12-inch bar on this could be really helpful with carving the bear. So I'm going to start cleaning it up and see if I can get this to start. So I got the little guy running, and I'm going to test that to a little bit of know-how, but probably most likely the maintenance of the previous owner. So now that I know that it runs, I could buy a bar for this, and like I said, I don't think they carry it at my local stores. Probably have to order it online, which kind of sucks because it's Wednesday, which means it probably won't get here till Friday, and I'm not carving the bear on the weekends to be a little conscientious of my neighbors, and that's most likely when people are going to be out and about. So I might not even get to use this until Monday, which is kind of a bummer. But just from starting it and playing with it, I cannot get over how lightweight it is. So this is as far as I got on that arm yesterday. You could see where the paw is going to be added, and I added these scrap pieces of wood to kind of match that orange circle I had, so that will make up the bulk of the arm. I think I'm going to get my wish with wanting to keep this horizontal, because the easiest way to skin this is going to be in a circle all the way around it. And I have this bundle of wooden lath left over from a project I did probably a couple years ago at this point. The plan is just going to be to start covering all the way up, going around a circle, and then trimming it once I have it done. And I'm going to be using brad sunk into here. Now this arm's going to be pretty close to final dimension and look, but in general, because there's so much hardware in this arm, I'm not going to be using the chainsaws on this. I could use one of the other pieces to finish up the arm. Late yesterday, I covered that armature I had with that wooden lath, and I'm not super in love with it. I don't mind the mismatch, mainly because this is all reclaimed wood and this stuff's pretty new, but if it's out here for a week, you'll be surprised how fast it weathers and it will start to match. The shape and the proportions aren't awful. My main problem with it is I'm not going for hyper realism with this bear, but I want it to look like a pretty well done sculpture, and I just can't go back in and carve any of this arm. First off, it's full of hardware, but more so because since brads, you could kind of cut through those pretty easily. It's more so that this lath is so thin and fragile that if you put any sort of saw on it, it kind of tears apart. So I think what I'm going to do, I was going to kind of wait and maybe it would grow on me, but I think what I'm going to do is first thing this morning, tear off all this stuff. And then I still have that armature, and I'll probably just build up that armature more so it's a little bit thicker and it's something I could carve into. And since unlike this where the screws are hidden, the armature you'll be able to see the screws, so I'll be able to hit it a little bit with the chainsaw. I think that's going to be kind of my approach going forward with this. So I took all that wooden lath off and removed that outer cage, and I added a couple more supports, and now I'm just going to build up material in a circle around this, and I could screw into the armature as well as to the base. If I use smaller pieces and cheat those screws to the back, I'll be able to carve into this still. So I'm going to be building this up similar to how you would make a segmented bowl if you were turning it on a lathe, which means I'm going to have to put pieces all around this and miter all my corners in order to get it to fit. But I could screw from the back and into this, and I should be able to carve it still, which is what I want. I went through and really spent some time flattening out the surface so that my pieces will sit flush, and there'll be a nice transition into the original bear. I did finish out putting all those pieces on that arm. It took a lot longer than the original way I did it, but it looks so much better. I'm really happy with it. And now the last thing to do is to make the paw, and the paw I'm planning on gluing up. I'm not going to use screws or anything, so I could carve it off the bear, which will be much easier, especially since I'm getting really close to the roof line. Getting tools in there will be pretty hard. And then I could just attach it after the fact. And the nice thing about that is I probably won't be using a saw, so I could work on that this weekend. So I have to get the angle of that arm. I don't want to build it on the bear because it's just going to be kind of a pain in the butt. So in order to make a jig in my shop for this, I just used a level and my bevel gauge. I made sure the level was obviously level, and then I got the angle off of that arm. Came into my shop and I kind of made this rudimentary jig because you don't need anything fancy. I'm probably just going to throw this away once I'm done. It's propped up on my toolbox and my miter gauge for my table saw, and I put it so that it matches the angle on that bear's arm. Now this is a digital bevel, which is nice. I could just turn it on and find out that that's about a 61-degree angle, which means if I cut my pieces at 30 degrees, which I cut a scrap piece on there, I cut it at 30. Now this angle is going to be at the top there exactly 60. So now I know that the pieces I'm going to glue together, if I put them at 30, will give me that continuation I need for the arm. And you can see with that scrap placed on there, how it will be perfect. With my original design, I was using this extension to that armature, which I was going to slide the arm on, and I don't think I need that anymore. It was going to mount on the piece like that. So part of the reason I did this was because I was going to build that piece around this in my shop. But now that I'm looking at it like this, I think I could just glue up a block. It's going to be about 12 inches high for the arm, and then the circle is about 11 inches around. I'm just going to glue up a block that will cover this area, and then once the glue has set, I'll probably put that 30-degree angle on the whole thing at once. So I switched out that spark plug with the right size spark plug. I put that new 12-inch bar in there and the new semi-chiseled chain. And it's still the weekend, it's Sunday, and I know I said I wasn't going to fire up my saws, but this glue up is done on my arm block, and I have to cut off this angle so I could carve it. So I'm literally going to be running this for maybe 2 minutes, and to be perfectly honest, I really want to try it out and see how well this bar works. So I'm going to rough cut this angle with my saw and kind of throw it up on the bear and see if it looks about right. So definitely forgot to turn on my camera before I cut this, but first impressions of that little saw are it's awesome. It's super lightweight. It cut through this, which is actually longer than 12 inches, so it's longer than the bar, so I had it buried in there pretty good. It still cut through it super easily. You can see the cut. In order to be able to prop this up in place and kind of take a look at it, I'm going to have to trim off this backside so it doesn't hit the roof.